Okay, Craig, come on up here. Without further ado, Ryan, come on up. And I want you to, well, first I'll introduce you while you go ahead and set that up. This is Craig Krenzel, and he was a quarterback. So I thought it would be fitting to start off with a little football throwing contest, because if you can't beat me, you're in trouble. So, but actually, you don't have to beat me, you got to beat Ryan. See, he's a former youth pastor, and youth pastors are good at this kind of thing.
They didn't teach me how to do football in seminary.
Oh. Youth pastors, you can't be a youth pastor unless you can play games. So you get 4 tries each. Let's see how this works out. Let's see your arm, Craig. I realize it's a little bit smaller. It should be easier, right? No? Yeah.
What other excuses do I get? I've never thrown with a microphone on in a sport coat, so there's my excuses.
There we are. Let's see what happens. Oh!
Right in the head.
All right, here we go.
Do I keep throwing?
Yeah, keep going.
All right,
you're doing
score.
Great. Uh-oh. I think he's finding his form. Ryan.
Here we go.
You first.
Can this be worth 3 points? You first. I was watching you.
See, it's all about,
sign
who
him.
goes first.
Sign him up.
Footballs, that's the problem.
Oh. Here, throw a real one. What does that look like?
I don't want to break the piano.
Oh, come on. Just use a little touch. Use a little touch. All right, come on in. Thanks. Oh, you're over here. Yeah, go ahead. All right. Well, Craig, it is great to have you here at the Valley Church. You know, football Sunday is about having a lot of fun, but it's also about sharing the gospel message. And I just appreciate you coming. And I know you were a big deal in your day, and you're still a big deal, right? Hey, you told me somebody came in and they didn't know who you were, and you said you liked anonymity. So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't need it thrown in my face. It's like, so I just turned 40 years old back in July, and I feel really good, and until I hear things like that.
Yeah.
You know,
when I was out 40, my boys
I am losing a little bit of hair and starting to thin up here. And
when I was 40, I played with my boys out in the backyard. They thought I was as good as Carson Palmer. So, you know. Hey, so it is good to be here. You're a former quarterback of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and you did some pro time. So we're going to be talking about that today. But that's not where you started. You were in Michigan, a Michigan guy. And turning into an Ohio State guy. How does that all happen? You played high school football there, then on to OSU. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So, I mean, if you need any further proof that there is a God, right? I mean, he got me out of the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
What more can a guy like me ask for, right? No, I grew up in Sterling Heights, Michigan, about a little over an hour north of Detroit. And, I have caught a lot of flack over time about just being from Michigan, and I always look at people and when they give me a hard time about being from Michigan, and I just ask them, like, did you have any control over where you were born? But we all reach that age of reason at different points in our lives, and I was blessed enough by the Lord to reach mine when I was about 16 and a half years old, junior year in high school, and that's when I decided that I was going to come try to chase my dream as a Buckeye, and it worked out well.
All right. So were you recruited also heavily in Michigan, and you just made the choice for OSU? Is that?
Yes. Yeah. So in Ann Arbor, they had just signed Drew Henson. For those of you that aren't familiar with the name, Drew was a year ahead of me, but he was the #1 quarterback recruit in the country. Also first-round draft pick for the New York Yankees, and he was at Michigan my senior year of high school. And not that I was scared or I would ever shy away from competition, but at the same time, you got to use a little common sense. And, it's not just where do you want to end up geographically, you got to like your coaches, but playing time opportunity is a big deal as well.
It sure is.
And they got a guy who's the #1 recruit in the country the year ahead of you. even if you're redshirt and he doesn't, you only have 2 years. The irony, actually, is when I came to Ohio State and I ended up starting for 2 years, Drew would, actually, as fate would have it, Drew left early to go play for the Yankees. And John Navarre was a 3-year starter up in Ann Arbor, and if any of you remember him, I'd like to think that you all agree with me that I was better than he was. So, had I gone to Michigan, I would have been a 3-year starter.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I mean, many are the plans of a man's heart, but the Lord directs his way in Proverbs. I wouldn't be here this morning. I wouldn't have this opportunity with this group, with you. I wouldn't have met my wife. I like to think I would have met a wife, but probably not the one I have now.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's been a blessing to leave the state of Michigan, to be a Buckeye for life. We have the best fans in the world. And just the opportunities that have come, especially on this platform, to share, what the game has taught me about life and how God has used football to shape my life has been, it's truly been a blessing.
Yeah. Awesome. You mentioned just a minute ago about coaches. What was it like to play for Coach Krenzel?
About what you would think. If you can, if you picture what Coach Tress was on the TV or when you read his quotes, he was that same man in the locker room. He was the same guy on the field, practice field, game, whether you're down by 3, up by 20, playing well, not playing well. I think a big part of the success that we had was, that level, calm, level-headed approach that Coach Tress brought every day. Just kind of that work pail mentality or lunch pail mentality of, pack your bag, bring your lunch, and we're going to be here from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m., and we got a lot of work to do, regardless of whether you're undefeated, whether you just lost, in Wisconsin for the first time in 19 games my senior year. The next day, he was always the same.
Yeah. Wow. So what is it about college football, particularly paying for a Power 5 conference and big-time college football? What's something that probably the person who hasn't played college football, what's something that really stood out to you as something they probably wouldn't understand or hadn't experienced the way you have?
So I think the biggest thing, Andy, is we all look now, and sometimes I find myself guilty of this, right? When I watch Jackson Smith and Jigba make, this was last season, not this past fall, but, one of the best catches I've ever seen, flying out of the back of the end zone. His body's on a, north of 45-degree angle. Somehow he still gets 1 foot down. We watch these guys every Saturday, and to a degree, we see them as the athlete. And I think we sometimes lose that connection as fans. I try to be very cognizant, having gone through it. These are just a bunch of 18-year-old kids, right? Like, think about I know what I was at 18. I wasn't playing yet. I say fortunate enough to have the time to mature and grow and develop physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, before I was thrust into that position of being the guy, being the starter at whatever position it is. But, these guys are just kids. They're going to class. They have families. So sometimes I hear people talk bad about a player, and it's like, all right, he had a bad game. Or maybe he's not that good, but he's obviously the best that we have at that position this year. And, at the end of the day, sometimes I think what fans don't understand is there's nobody that expects more of those players than they do of themselves.
Yeah.
And, so I just always encourage, just remember, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. Yes, they have a great opportunity. Yes, we hope and pray that they make the best of it. But, I didn't always make the best of every opportunity when I was 18. So I think sometimes we just lose a sense of the human side of what these athletes are, whether it's college, professional, regardless of the sport.
Yeah. How much pressure did you feel in some of those games? Because Ohio State has some of the best fans, but they also have some of the most rabid, and if we're straight up about it. So how did you deal with the pressure in those moments where there were some big games?
For me personally, everybody's different. Every athlete handles those moments differently. It sounds bad to say it, but for me, I never really felt the pressure. When I just say it sounds bad to say it, I never, there's no other, I'm just going to say it and y'all can take it from there. Like, I didn't really care that much. In the grand scheme of life, it's like, y'all, it's just a game, right? So when I'm talking about these kids and they're 18 and they're 20, it's just a game, right? It's just a game where these big idiots run into each other as hard as they can, right? Like I could never understand that part. You know, I spent my entire career trying to avoid getting hit by one of those guys. But, you know, it's just a game. It's just something we do. It's, you know, whether it's a job, whether it's a sport, whatever your hobby might be, it's, you know, in the grand scheme of life, you know, when we lost at Camp Randall my senior year, first, as I mentioned earlier, you know, first game we lost in 19 games, sun still came up the next day. The Lord still loved me. My family still loved me. There were probably a lot of fans that didn't, but you know, I never met them anyway. And you know, my father taught me a lot of things, and one of them was don't concern yourself with the opinions of people that you don't even know, and that don't know you. But you know, for me, it's like I just didn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hate to lose. I was not going to lose this throwing competition. I can tell you that right now. So. It's not that I didn't care.
And I didn't tell Ryan to throw it either, so.
I thought for myself for a minute, I was like, man, should I let somebody win? I was like, nah, I can't do that. That's not the way God made me.
No. So you had some wins during that season you had. What were some of the biggest moments on that stage for you that you felt like, wow, these were incredible?
Oh, man, I don't think we have enough time to get through them.
Give me a couple.
You know, as you look at any season where a team wins a Super Bowl or a national championship or whatever the pinnacle of that sport is, you're always going to find key moments. You're always going to find, you know, you catch a break, the ball bounces the right way. Maybe if you lost that game, you didn't catch that break and the other team did. And I think when you look at that 02 season in particular, there was a handful of plays and games, one of them being Penn State at home, very low-scoring affairs. We had a lot of them that season.
Yeah.
But Chris Gamble had an interception, pick six early in the third quarter where he had an interception, and, you know, I was getting my helmet on, crowd's going crazy. Probably the loudest moment that I ever recall here in the Horseshoe. I mean, it was loud, and I was putting my helmet on because we're going to get the ball back, and I started walking to Coach Tress kind of behind the play because Chris had just kind of danced by us on the sideline, and as I'm going to talk to Coach Tress, he's completely ignoring me because I realized Chris is still running. And, you know, from my viewpoint when he intercepted the ball, he had no lead blockers, and he was on our sideline and just white jerseys everywhere. And, you know, 5 seconds later, 4 seconds later, whatever it was, he's still in and out, making guys miss, and takes it back to the house. I mean, it was one of the most incredible individual athletic efforts that I had ever seen. For those of you that maybe don't remember that play, look it up. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, that Chris was so gifted physically. Really level-headed guy, but hard-working kid, and just to watch that, I felt like I was playing a video game. You know, you play the video game and you can make the guy move. And I kept watching from behind as he kept going. I'm like, oh, there's a spot. There's, you know. And next thing I know, he's in the end zone. So that was a season-saving play, if you will. Another play, obviously, somebody here earlier had the Holy Buckeye t-shirt on. I'm not sure where you're at in the crowd, but Holy Buckeye, 4th and a yard and a half at Purdue, and you know, I think there was about 37 seconds left on the clock, and 30-plus yard touchdown pass to Michael Jenkins to go ahead, and that was anybody remember that play? All I can say is Coach Tress was probably saying the same thing that you all might have been saying when I let that ball go, which is, what the heck is he doing? Right? It's 4th a yard and a half. All we need is a first down because we had plenty of time on the clock to keep the drive moving. We had a timeout. And, in college football, clock stops when you get a first down. So, time wasn't really the issue. Obviously, 4th and a yard and a half. First down is the main goal there. But I always tell people this. Michael Jenkins was one of the most underrated Buckeyes to ever wear the scarlet and gray. Just smart, physically, obviously a stud, just hardworking, great leader. Pleasure to serve beside Mike as a captain. Really just one of the best guys I've ever met. From a football standpoint, if there was ever a moment where I had Michael Jenkins one-on-one, I was trying to find a way to get him the football because I knew he would get the job done. He was a guy that I trusted. Yeah. If I put the ball in the right spot or anywhere near the right spot, Mike was going to make the play. And, if you really watch that play in slow motion, you see just how talented and how gifted he was because Michael did an unbelievable job of making it look like the perfect throw. It was a good throw, don't get me wrong, but he made it look perfect. And when you watch that play, as the ball is in the air, he purposefully slows his body a little bit somewhere around the 5-yard line because he had the defensive back on his back as the ball is going over. And for that DB to make a play on the ball, if Mike, so Mike slowed down on purpose, so at the last minute he could time up and he could explode and reach, therefore giving a DB zero chance to make a play on the ball without coming through his body for a pass interference penalty. And he just, he made the play, he made the throw look absolutely perfect. And saved another, if you remember that season, we had a lot of close games. I like to tell people we just wanted y'all to get your money's worth, whether you were at home and you had people over and you had the wings out. Those wings cost money, whether you bought a ticket to be at the game or fly to a game. We just want to make sure you got your money's worth. We didn't want anyone leaving in the third quarter. And then the last play that really comes to mind is the national championship game, the play where for what seemed like 20 minutes.
This is double overtime, right, in this game?
Yes, that was double overtime game. This actually happened in regulation. What seemed about 20 minutes, and Ben Hartsock, one of my really good friends, our tight end, will tell you the same thing as the ball is coming to him. He says that he actually had a thought in his mind, I'm going to catch a touchdown pass in the national championship game. And as I'm trying to put the ball on Ben on a corner route down in the end zone, the late Sean Taylor, one of the best players that I've ever played against, just comes out of nowhere and intercepts it in the end zone. And, as I start running to try to make a tackle, I got absolutely blasted by Vince Wilfork. Would have been a penalty. In today's football, Vince Wilfork would have been thrown out of the game for targeting. You actually can see the video. My body is horizontal, about 4 feet off the ground. I got absolutely what I get for trying to make a tackle, first
Didn't
of all.
hurt a bit, right?
Actually, a little bit. A little bit. But if you remember the play, Maurice Claret, out of nowhere, has the angle, catches Sean Taylor, not only makes a touchdown-saving tackle, but strips the football back. So, I made a mistake down in the end zone, and then Reese comes in, and like great teammates do, like great friends do, you're there when someone's down. You're there when someone makes a mistake, and you're there to help. That play may have saved the game. We got the ball back, moved it a little bit, and ended up kicking a field goal. So instead of them having the ball after a huge momentum change, where we're on the goal line about to score, I throw a pick. They're going to get the ball, maybe go score, even if he just makes that tackle. For us to get the ball and at least salvage some points out of that whole transaction was huge, especially in a game that went to double overtime.
Yeah. Was OSU expected to win that game?
No.
Yeah.
No. I think we were, 14-point underdogs?
That became such a big deal that that they created a Krenzel bobblehead out of that. So that must have been a big deal in the day, right?
Once again, in the day. There we go again.
Trying to see if that looks like him.
In the day. In the day when I wasn't so old.
Sorry, I get it happens.
Just comes
us.
natural,
it
right?
It
just comes natural, right? No, that was actually that was really weird. Like, today we hear everything about this name, image, likeness, how these guys are getting paid money or getting cars. They couldn't do that back in the day. So when I graduated, my eligibility was finally up. I got reached out to do this bobblehead deal, and you're a 22-year-old kid, and someone's coming to you and they want to put your name on a bobblehead, and then when they show it to you, you're like, really? Do I look that weird? But yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was fun. It was different. It was interesting. It was a whole new phase of life. Kind of one of my first, really at that time, my first introduction to business and how things work in the real world. And I learned a ton and still get to have a little fun with it to this day.
Yeah. And so after that, I mean, there's a lot of hoopla. There's bobbleheads and all kind of stuff. Then it's time to transition. You decide to go pro, and you make that transition. You have some injuries and all that. But I think your first touchdown came on Monday Night Football. Was it?
It was Sunday Night Football. My first start came the week before. We were down in Tampa Bay. And, I was drafted in the 5th round. I was a project guy. Maybe you develop into a good backup. But I definitely wasn't viewed as a starting quarterback in the NFL as a rookie. But as our starter, Rex Grossman, got hurt. Our backup just wasn't up for the job, and they had to try to do something different. So I'm in the locker room at halftime the week before my first start down in Tampa, and Wade Wilson, who was our quarterback's coach, I think he played 18 or 19 years in the NFL, went to the Pro Bowl for the Vikings, just a good old boy from West Texas, doesn't really mince his words. He just comes up and he throws me a ball. He goes, "Hey, you got the ball in the second half. You're starting." And I was like, "Huh, all right." And I said, "Hey, Wade," I said, I got one question. And he goes, "What's that?" I said, "You think I could have got some reps in practice this week?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Is there anything you can do about it now?" I looked at Wade and I said, "Nope, let's go." And actually, we did some good things in the second half of that game. Moved the ball a little bit, scored, actually took the lead until somewhere early in the fourth quarter. I threw a pick six to Rondé Barber, Hall of Fame, NFL corner, multi-time Pro Bowler. He took it back to the house. They took the lead. We came back, stalled, and ended up losing the game. But somehow they turned to me the next week, and I got my first start against San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football. My first pass of my first start was a 52-yard touchdown pass to a fellow rookie named Bernard Berrien out of Fresno State. And I promise you my NFL career was all downhill from that moment. Like straight downhill.
Yeah, how was that after having such a successful college career and then the pro? Yeah, and again, injuries played a part in that. How was it?
It was fun. First of all, I got a chance to live my dream. Would I've loved to have lived it longer? 100%.
Yeah.
I look at some of these guys that are still backups in the NFL, and I'm like, I was better than that guy. But that's not the way it always works. But it was an awesome opportunity. I learned so much about life. I learned so much about the people side of business and how you treat people, because unfortunately I had the what's the opposite of a blessing? The curse, I guess, of playing for what I have come to find out are two of the more poorly run organizations. Ironically, one of them is playing this afternoon in the Super Bowl. But in terms of like the internal, what goes on behind the scenes, there's a lot of things that I learned about how you treat people and how you don't treat people. Not that I was necessarily even treated poorly, but just other guys, different, stories you hear, things that are going on. It was a wonderful experience to for young kids in the room that dream about playing in the NBA or Major League Baseball or the NFL. to be able to say that I was blessed enough to even make it was just it was a blessing. It was truly a great opportunity. Learned so much, and most importantly, met so many great people along the way that just helped me grow personally, professionally, and most importantly, spiritually, and really helped my faith grow.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we were talking beforehand about football and faith, and a lot of times it's what did football teach you about faith? But you were telling me before it's almost about what your faith is teaching you as you go through the trials of football. What would you learn along the way? And when did you start that faith journey?
So I was born and raised in the Catholic Church. We weren't an every Sunday family, but my childhood was grounded in faith. But it was more about the process and the ritual, I think. And then my senior year of high school, I actually went to a Super Bowl party with one of my buddies, my best friend, Jeremy Resmer. Went to a Super Bowl party at his girlfriend's church, which was ironic because I couldn't stand her. He was my best friend. Anyone ever have that? Your best friend or a sibling, or and that's their significant other, and you're like, ugh. She's not for you, man. But it's funny how God works, right? But so we go to the Super Bowl party at her church, and ironically enough, the guest speakers were football players from Michigan. So my faith journey really kind of started, my individual faith journey really kind of started at the behest of a bunch of guys from Michigan, which is. So some good can come out of Michigan. But that's when I really started to learn what this journey is all about and why we need Jesus. And I started to learn that, we're all sinners, that we all have the problem of not having the ability to be obedient to God at all times. And to really go down that journey and learn the why, God gave his son for us and what that means, that we have salvation, that we have the opportunity, to live for eternity in God's presence, in God's holy presence, because of his gift of grace to every single one of us, that all we have to do is accept it. On the surface, it sounds easy. Right? But when you really start digging down, there's a lot of personal growth. There's a lot of conviction. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of admitting our flaws and failures that you have to do to really accept that we are worthy of that gift. And, when I look at my football career, every step of the way, God put the people in my life. As I listened to you talk about launching another campus, right? What's the first thing you shared today before you spiked the football? And by the way, for all you youngsters out there, don't spike the football. All right, I always tell young kids, young athletes, right? Act like you've been there before, right? Like
I have.
Act like, right? You've done this once already, right?
See,
act like
one good throw under the bus it deserves another.
Yeah, exactly. but act like you expected it to happen. You hit a home run in baseball, don't flip your bat, right? Just toss the bat down like you hit a single, and have fun on your little jog, and be grateful that you have the gift to be able to do that. Act like you expect it to happen.
I'm still going to spike it in second service, just so we know.
I might still say the same thing. It's all right. But
next campus, we'll do something different.
Yeah. But what's the first thing you talk about when you're going to launch a campus?
You got to find the leader, man.
The people, the leadership. And I was so blessed. When I got to Ohio State, he's actually still the team chaplain, a gentleman by the name of Tom Rohde. Keep in touch with Tom to this day. Just had breakfast with him about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Tom was there in my teenage college years where a lot of decisions need to be made. every single day. And, we hear the stories when guys make the wrong decisions, but there's a lot of guys at a lot of schools playing major college football that are making great decisions every day. I forget there was a player from Michigan, signed an NIL deal for name, image, and likeness, and then went out and bought thousands of turkeys for families on Thanksgiving Day, right? I mean, you want to talk about being a blessing? How awesome is that? But, Tom was there to really shepherd me along the way where I was at in my faith journey, and to do so with persistence, because when I came in, I was trying to balance school with practice and all that as a freshman, and Tom introduces himself, and we start talking, and I always had an excuse. Oh, I got to study. And not that it was a bad excuse, not that I didn't want to meet with Tom, but he would be like, hey, what about this time? I'd be like, I have study table. I got this exam. We have practice. I have to lift. But Tom never gave up. He never gave up. God never gives up, and he will never give up on us. And, Tom was there to keep nudging me. And I finally sat down for the first time with Tom, and we were on the indoor facility, a massive building at the Woody Hayes, full-size football field, and I had our game plan, my binder for the week. And I'll never forget, Tom's kind of like flipping through it, and he's got this puzzled look on his face, and he says, "Where's the part in this game plan that shows that you guys win?" And I kind of looked at him, and I was like, "Well, Tom, this is preparation to help us win, but we still have to play the game." And Tom just opens his Bible. He goes, "Well, let me show you where we've already won and why." And it was, I'll never forget that moment. But Tom was there for, the next 4.5 years, just week in and week out, to be a shoulder to lean on when I needed, comfort, a voice to motivate, always a voice in the back of my head, when those decisions would come up, that you have to make difficult choices, and you really want to make the right choice. So Tom was there, and really, when I left Ohio State, my spiritual growth far surpassed any of my physical growth as a football player, which was awesome because that's the most important thing, right? Yeah. But then, likewise, when I got to the NFL, I became a little detached. I went to Chicago. It wasn't the best experience. Beth, my wife, and I, we grew a lot closer. When you're a fifth-round pick and you're really not that good, relatively speaking, right? And you have to play in a market like Chicago. I said earlier, my father told me, take no solace in the opinions of people you never met. Sometimes it gets a little hard to do that when there's hundreds of thousands and millions of people in a place like Chicago. So it was kind of a challenging time for me professionally. But when I got to Cincinnati, for all the things that were wrong in the organization, the one thing that was right was the Spirit of God in that locker room. And there was a guy by the name of John Kitna. I don't know if anyone's heard. Anyone here know who John Kitna is? Man, you want to talk about a man of God. Yeah. First real conversation I ever had with Kit, we're sitting there the night before our first practice and just talking. And he said, "Hey, I've been following you just up the road, and really looking forward to getting to know you, and hope you make the team and stick around and all that kind of stuff." And the next day we get out there and we're stretching, and I had an issue where, for whatever reason, when I would step on a football field, the filter that existed between my brain and my heart, but what would come out of my mouth, just kind of seemed to shut off. And we're sitting there, very first practice, and I'm trying to make the team. They claim me off of waivers, but there's another guy that I'm competing for the third spot on the team, and we're stretching and all this kind of stuff. And when we're done, Kit turns around and looks at me and goes, "Hey, man, I know I just met you yesterday, but I got to ask you, we had a great conversation last night, and we talked a little bit about our faith, and It's like, I got to ask you, like, what's with the words? Like, I mean, dude, I just met. I mean, you want to talk about accountability. Imagine spending an entire season with that dude. And I just looked at him. I was like, John, when I get on a field, I just, I've always had this problem. And right there on the field, John Kettner says, I'm going to pray for you. Puts his hands on my shoulders. And I was standing right in the middle of, 75 guys. And Kit's praying for me, for the Holy Spirit to help me be better with my language on the field. And all of a sudden I hear our quarterback's coach, hey, you two lovebirds going to join us at all over here? Like, as loud as humanly possible. Like, everybody on the field's looking now at Kit with his hand on his shoulders praying for me. But he didn't care. And, eventually when they figured out what was happening, everyone was like, oh, it's Kit, don't worry about it. He's just, he's doing his thing. Or another John Kitna story that is awesome is he had this orange hat, and it had a black cross on it. And then on the side, it just said Galatians 2:20. And then on the back, it said crucified with Christ. And it was Bengals colors, but the NFL has these really awesome rules where you have to wear team-issued gear and equipment, blah, 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 or be subject to a fine. So Kit wears the hat, and during warm-ups, on the sideline all game long, and he gets a little note in his locker room the week after of his fine for $10,000, and he appeals the fine, says, it was team colors, da-da-da-da-da-da, and the league actually, okays his appeal and erases the fine with a warning of now all this kind of stuff. Well, next game, hat was on. Game after that, hat was on. Game after that, hat was on. And I just looked at him the first week, and I just started laughing, and he goes, you don't think I give money to charity? He goes, I get to tell the NFL where to send this money. He goes, so I'm making a point, and I'm going to tell them I want to go into this church or this ministry, or because I'm going to make the NFL take my money and make the league go support all these ministries, that are out there expanding the kingdom. So it's like, so once again, imagine being in the presence of someone like that, or our tight end, Reggie Kelly, who was leading our, weekly couples Bible studies, right? So guys with your significant other or your wife, fiancés. We probably had 18 to 20 couples every week. Just, the Holy Spirit was alive in that locker room. So, as you mentioned earlier, I get asked the question a lot, how did my faith impact my career? And it's a great question because, there's a lot of ups and downs, just in life in general, but especially when you're competing at that highest level of a sport. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And, knowing, where my soul is going to wind up, and having that peace that comes from that foundation, without question, helps get through the lows and the troughs, and as importantly, helps keep you humble and grounded in the times when you're standing on top of the mountain. But sometimes I laugh when I think about, how sometimes as humans, as we're living our lives, how we get so wrapped up in what's going on in the world that we lose a sense of, what's really God's plan. Because God didn't bring me to him and grow my faith so I could have a better football career. God put this tiny, meaningless, insignificant game in my life so that I could meet the people that were going to, as I mentioned earlier, shepherd me along the way, that were going to help me grow, to be able to draw nearer to God, to be able to look to him for strength in times of doubt, in times of sadness, in times of grief, to be able to look to him for guidance in times of success. That's why I play football, so that God could make me a better child of God.
Yeah. And, you know,
And
that's
sometimes I think he did a pretty good job. Sometimes I look and I say, man, what are you doing?
that's powerful, though, in that no matter what's going on in our life, God wants to use that. And so if we'll hold on loosely to the things of life, football, all these fame, all these other things, all the careers that we have, if we'll hold on loosely to them and hold on tightly to God, it'll all work out. And God's got a plan. You faced some tragedy in your own life about 3 years ago. I understand that your mother-in-law was at your house sledding, and there was a tragedy where she died right
Yeah,
there.
it was, my wife and I were out of town. Actually, we were driving to the airport to fly home on a Friday, and she was just, the kids had a snow day, and she was in our backyard, and we have this real gentle hill, and you know, my father-in-law and her were just sledding with our children, and she sat down on a little saucer sled, and it kind of slid forward, and she, from a seated position, kind of slipped backwards and hit her head on the snow. And I mean, I can't even imagine how that would do the damage that it did, but you know, it's not for us to figure out, right? It's for us to trust in to trust in God, that He knows the way and He knows the truth and the purpose in our lives. And you know, I remember having a conversation with my wife's aunt at the funeral, where you know she said something that was very profound, where she said, you know, and if in the wake of this event, she was just shy of her 64th birthday, 25 more years, right? 25 more years, 90 years old, you know, we would look at that and say, man, that's a good life. That's a long, you know, if you stay healthy. And Beth's aunt looked at me and said, what's 25 years on God's time? You know, it's not even one grain of sand in all the beaches and all the ocean floor on the entire planet. 25 years. It's not even a grain of sand out of I don't even know what that number is right? So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, those times of doubt, those times of grief, whatever it is that you're dealing with in life, you know, we were able to draw nearer to God as a family and really look to Jesus, you know, for the comfort that comes in that promise that we will be united. And, you know, one of my favorite songs, the number one selling Christian song of all time, I believe. You know, I can only imagine. I can only imagine what that moment is going to be like, to be in His presence, to be with the souls of all the ones we've lost. I mean, the promise that we get in that is fuel to just wake up and just go at it and try to be the best that I can every single day.
Yeah. And yeah, there's really no comparison. All the accolades, all the big games, the things that have gone well, there's no comparison to that moment, is there, to that time?
No, I mean, that's what I said. I can only imagine, right? I mean, sometimes you close your eyes and you picture like, hey, what's heaven going to be like? You know, for me, sometimes it's just this bright light in the presence of Jesus. You know, for me personally, sometimes it's like, you know, being at 13,000 feet and about 2 feet of snow, because I love to ski. Like, wouldn't that be great if heaven was just a powder day every day?
It's never you on the field against Michigan.
No, it's never on a football field. Isn't that funny? Been there, done that. No, but you know, I was actually skiing with my brother one time, and we were out in Colorado, and we were in Vail, and you know, when you get to this top of this peak in Vail, at Vail Mountain, you can look back at the Gore Range and you can see there's a mountain. It's a 14,000 foot peak in Colorado, and it's called Mount Holy Cross. And when there's enough snow, it's this super steep face, but the way it's, you know, the way God created it, when there's enough snow, you just see this giant cross. And you know, I'll never forget, my brother looked at me and he goes, man, it was his first time being out west. he goes, man, this is unbelievable. And he looked at me, he goes, no matter how awesome this is, and this view and everything you're experiencing, he goes, this doesn't even pale in comparison to heaven. You know, and then like I just said earlier, I kind of looked around and I go, I kind of hope heaven's like this, actually.
Yeah.
Like, maybe a touch warmer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this would be it for me. But yeah, I mean, that's why I love that song so much. And I love the story behind the song more. For those of you that haven't seen it, you know, read up on it, watch the movie. Powerful, powerful story about, you know, how Jesus can change lives, how he is changing lives, how he does change lives on a daily basis. But yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah. I got one last question for you. You know, there are a lot of people here, including myself. You always wonder if, you know, if I were in that moment, in that spotlight, if I achieved that level of success, if I had those opportunities, boy, would I want to hang on to that? And is it all that's cracked up to be? Does it compare to the hope that we have in Jesus? And I think no matter what level we're at, what we achieve, there's always that we have to decide. And you've got to play at the highest level. You've got to achieve some success. You got a bobblehead after all. What you can answer that for us? What is it worth? Is it worth your salvation? Is it how does it compare?
No, I mean, no.
Yeah.
I mean that to me, there's nothing that I would not trade to know that I'm going to be in the presence of Christ for eternity. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. The peace and the calm that comes with, you know, fully believing that in my mind and in my heart. You know, there is not a thing, good or bad, on this earth that would even compare, right? Because kind of going back, I mean, what's 90 years? It's a grain of sand. Yeah. Right? It's a grain of sand. So what we do for 80, 90, 63 and a half years that my mother-in-law had, what we do in that time is the only thing that matters in that time is, you know, what did we do to introduce others to Christ? Right? What did we do? We just, late last year at a church that I attend, kind of did a series called Making Heaven Full, right? What did we do in the time that we had on this earth to help make heaven just a little more full?
Yeah. By the way, that's what today is all about. Making heaven full. It's about the fun of football and using the momentum of football, which is a great sport. It's a lot of fun to make heaven full.
Yeah, and just so y'all know, every single one of you has a football in your life. Every single person, you know, we're all created uniquely and individually by God, but every single one of us has a gift. Every single one of us has a passion. Every single one of us has it in them to use a talent that God has given you to reach one person, to reach 10 people, to teach them how to reach other people. It doesn't have to be football. It doesn't have to be music. It's for everybody, it's going to be something different. You know, but I've had conversations with people where, you know, they kind of have the mentality, oh, I'm just a nobody. And that's why I love, there's a new Casting Crowns song out. I can't think of the name of the song, but it's like, I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody, right? So we're all a bunch of nobodies. Every single person, we're all nobodies. You know, because God doesn't care whether you can throw a football through that little guy or not. You know, he loves us all the same, and the opportunity is there for us all the same. Sorry to jump in, but you know, everybody's got a football in their life.
Yeah. And I love Facing Giants. It's one of my favorite movies where that guy, you know, they have him go the length of the field. And it always sticks in my heart. God always reminds me, Andy, are you giving me your very best? And I think that'd be the challenge for all of us today. Are you giving God your very best? If you have never said yes to Jesus, have you put him first in your life? That's really what it is about. And if you put him first in your life, who are you bringing along for the journey? Because it isn't about football. That's not the priority. Yes, it's a great sport. It's a gift God's given us. It's not about our career. It's not about all those other things in our lives. It's about, have we said yes to Jesus? Do we have the big picture in mind? Are we going to be with him? And who are we bringing along for the ride? So I want to pray with us and just ask God to direct each heart here this morning. Father, I just pray for that person who's here who has never said yes to you, has not begun that journey with you, so they're facing the tragedies of life and all the up moments and all the down moments, the temptations that come in life, but also the trials, the hard moments. They're doing that on their own, and Lord, we know that without you, we can't face those moments. We can't walk through them. We need you to walk with us and to strengthen us and to help us keep our eyes on the hope that we have. And so this morning, I just pray for that person who's never said yes to you would realize there's nothing in their life that's worth missing you. They can gain the whole world, and if they forfeit their soul, they've lost it all. And so, Lord, I just pray this morning that they would make that decision to put you first, no matter what else is going on, no matter what else they're trying to achieve. And then, Father, I just pray that they would trust you. They would trust you in their life. They would ask you to forgive their sin and take that step with you. I just pray for that person this morning. I also pray, Father, for this army that you've raised, these missionaries in this church, those who are following you, Jesus. Would they be a John Kitna and come alongside a Craig Krenzel? Would you use them in the workplaces and in their homes and in their neighborhoods and with that person next door? Would you use them, Father? Would they rise up to that challenge? And would they understand that that's the purpose you have in their life? And Lord, I just pray they'll use whatever gift you've given them. If it's football, great. But if it's the ability to work or build connections or raise money or do whatever it is, Father, that you have given them, let them do it to the best of their ability. Let them give their complete all. We just pray that. And we'll leave the results with you. And we just thank you for who you are, Jesus. We thank you that in the end, you're Lord and that you love us and you have a place for us in heaven if we'll just trust in you. We can only imagine that day. We ask it in your great name, Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Would you thank Craig for joining us today? He says thanks. And hey, you're not dismissed. You're sent out to go change the world. God bless you.